This is Dolynny TV, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning and welcome in to another edition of Edmonton Oilers discussion here on the channel this morning. And let me tell you, I'm excited for this one because that 9 Things column from Kurt Levins was out again this morning. Every Sunday at midnight, if you're lucky enough to be still up at that time, you can catch it. And of course, he had some stuff on the Hub Cities and COVID-19. Ryan Kessler's in there. I'm straight up not talking about Ryan Kessler because that's just something I don't want to deal with. But you know what? Here we go. Let's talk about point number 6, shall we? Point number 6 talks about Leon Draisaitl, Connor McDavid, and Darnell Nurse, the core of the Edmonton Oilers leadership group, returning to Rogers Place this week, and how, I'll read this from here on out, that these 3 showed up together at Rogers Place this week should be taken as a very positive sign of resolve that this bunch means business. It's a signal to the rest of the team that they'll be intent upon finishing what they started during a strong regular season. Now, obviously, I say that, and there's people who say the Oilers didn't have a strong regular season. I'd read that more that Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, and Darnell Nurse had a strong regular season, and they pulled this Oilers team along at times when necessary to make sure we got to where we were. Obviously, I know a lot of people still griping that the Oilers weren't the division winners by 25 points, but you know what? In a season in which we were sitting here talking about probably not making the playoffs based on everyone's evaluation at the start of the season, let's just enjoy where we are. I'd say, even though we are stuck in a play-in against Chicago, the 5-12. However, we won't worry about that too much today. I want to talk about the leadership group and how that all kind of works in and works together with this whole season the Oilers have had. The thing being, right, at the start of the year, I did a video about Leon Draisaitl, how he was poised to really become probably the biggest locker room voice the Oilers had. And I'm not going to go back and watch my remarks there because my remarks there are no longer valid to what we see now. However, what I will iterate now is simply why I would have had a good bet on that and why it's a really good paid off bet now. Is the thing nobody talks about with Connor McDavid is Connor McDavid is not only the captain of the Oilers, say what you will about him getting the captaincy too early or not, is the fact that since Connor McDavid walked into the NHL, played his first hockey game for the Oilers, is he has been the face of not necessarily the NHL, right? Sidney Crosby, Alex Ovechkin still vying for that, but he has been the face of the new NHL. What the NHL is going to be about moving forward. When you lose Crosby, when you lose Ovechkin, Connor McDavid is and will be and has been what that new NHL will be all about. Fair point, I think. So, in that statement, the Oilers do need someone like a Leon Draisaitl, like what Leon Draisaitl has done this year, to really balance things out. Because when Connor McDavid has his duties as the face of the NHL, right? Obviously, Connor McDavid has more questions to answer on a regular basis than just, oh, what about the Oilers? And when you get tired, right? Everybody gets tired of answering questions at some point. I've interviewed Junior B players for 2 full seasons, and after you interview the same guy about 6 or 7 times, he's over it. He's done with it. Novelty's worn off. I'm good. You know what I'm about to say. Why am I even saying it? And that's probably and very fair to say about NHL players as well. So Connor McDavid obviously having 2 things to answer to, being the face of the new NHL and being the Edmonton Oilers captain. At some point, you need somebody who can just shoulder that Edmonton Oilers load, take it off his back, and put it on for a little while and let it run. And that's been Leon Draisaitl this year as well. Leon Draisaitl has really done that, exactly what I expected, grown into that very big presence in the locker room, that number 2, that number 1A, if you would, number 1B, however you want to say it, and really done something special with it, right? He's towed that line of playoffs, playoffs, playoffs all year. He's been that guy to answer when times get tough, and he's been that guy who, I think that quote on the Oilers bio belongs to Leon Draisaitl, if I'm not mistaken. About the fans being effing phenomenal, if you would. I don't know how else to put it. I could put bleep in there if you want, but I think I'm going to put it the way I just did because that holds true as true can be to what Leon Draisaitl said today. And let me just see. Let me see if I can find it here. Hold on with me. I want to just see. I just want to get the quote attribution. Yeah, there we go. So it was March 1st. March 1st against the who did we play March 1st? Let me go see this. I'm getting sidetracked, but it's been a while since I got sidetracked in an Oilers discussion video. So you give me a second here and just you work with me and we'll be good to go. As we haven't played since March, not two. March 2nd, so who did we play February 29th? We played the Winnipeg Jets. There we go. So that was a big home ice victory, and that's where that's coming from. Okay, perfect. Too much time's passed, ladies and gentlemen. See, that's the problem. Too much time has passed, and I'm forgetting things as we go along. But now, okay, I've talked about Leon Draisaitl. I've talked about Connor McDavid. What about Darnell Nurse? I think Darnell Nurse, when I come down to it and start talking Darnell Nurse is that complementary piece, that back end piece, right? The defensive side of the leadership core there for the Edmonton Oilers between Draisaitl, McDavid, and Nurse. And kind of that, I don't know if it's a fair comparison. This is what I'm going to try and leave you on here in the next 3 minutes or so is back in the 80s, right? Everybody talked about Gretzky, Messier, Coffey, but when it comes down to the leadership group, from everything I've been told of the 80s Oilers and the Cup-winning Oilers, is it came down to Gretzky, Messier, and a guy named Kevin Lowe, who's now been inducted into the Hall of Fame and is still leading various charity efforts for the Edmonton Oilers, right? And I think I'm not necessarily sitting here saying Kevin Lowe equals Darnell Nurse, because on the ice, from what I've been able to Google beforehand of this video, Kevin Lowe didn't scrap as much as Darnell Nurse does. Kevin Lowe doesn't score as much as Darnell Nurse does, but being that complementary third piece, like Darnell Nurse is, like Kevin Lowe was to that era of Oilers hockey, this is exactly what you're looking for. I think in terms of if you're going to go back to history for the Oilers, what worked before compared to what works now, I'm thinking you've got exactly what you're looking for in Darnell Nurse, being a thundering defenseman too, right? Darnell Nurse, man, guys, you need somebody to change the flow of a game from a defensive perspective. Darnell Nurse lays a big hit. Darnell Nurse throws the guy aside. Darnell Nurse fights the guy. You're talking all of a sudden a guy taking charge on the back end and doing that. And realistically, out of any of our other defensemen, who do you have that's going to do that? Anybody? Not really. Right? We've seen Ethan Bear in one fight against Matthew Tkachuk, but that wasn't the momentum shifter in that game. The momentum shifter was that it bought time for Mike Smith and Cam Talbot to walk their way to center ice and throw down. That's right. That often forgotten in that whole mess is the fact that Ethan Bear fought Matthew Tkachuk. But Clefbaum's not going to sit there and fight somebody. Adam Larson, he might lay a thundering hit, but that's about all Adam Larson does, except for maybe block a key shot like he did against the Canucks opening night on October 3rd, October 2nd, wherever that was. And then you've got Chris Russell, Matt Benning, Mike Green, Caleb Jones, right? There's really not much there to say that those guys are going to go out and alter the game by dropping the gloves. You just don't see that. So that's where I think Darnell Nurse really gets everything, is he has a well-rounded ability to change the game on a defensive or emotional side of the game, but he's also got that offensive flair in which he works well with a Connor McDavid and a Leon Draisaitl, and that's why he's included in that group, and that's why he is important to the leadership group. Now, the question is, Tyson, in this, you're talking all about these guys that were here before, but we were talking on that Leon Draisaitl video, to go back to it from August, September, about how James Neal and Mike Smith, what role do they play? And I think James Neal and Mike Smith, when it comes down to it, everybody expected them to kind of come in, take over the locker room, and really show these guys what it means to win. But instead of doing that, if we're talking about Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, and Darnell Nurse being the core of the Oilers leadership group going into the playoffs, as opposed to a Mike Smith and a James Neal who have very extensive playoff experience, you're talking about guys who came in and accepted the idea of, instead of taking over the locker room, empowering the leaders that were already here. And I personally, unless unless somebody in this audience that's watching this video has been in the Oilers dressing room, your guess is as good as mine, but my guess is that that's exactly what happened. James Neal, Mike Smith came in coming off of their experiences playing against this team, playing in the playoffs, playing in winning situations, and came in and realized, you know what, we don't have to change anything here. We just have to make sure these guys have the tools to be leaders for a winning hockey team. And that's obviously, if we're still talking about who our core group of leaders is going into playoffs and it's not those two, well, then obviously that had to have taken place, and it's been very, very effective. Because you've seen in the past, the Oilers have tried to bring in free agents to change kind of the leadership group or embolden the leadership group of the core, and it just hasn't worked. While this took some commitment from several guys in the locker room, and it has worked. The only other thing I have to ask in this whole situation is, where does Nuge fit into this? Right? Where does Ryan Nugent-Hopkins fit into it? And I think his fit in all this is being that kind of silent partner, that guy that just is sitting here thinking, and I've mentioned this already, the team is built around Nugent-Hopkins, right? There's no other way to put it. You can build the team around McDavid, Draisaitl, whatever you want. But the longest tenured Oiler, the Oiler who's been here longer than anybody else in that locker room, is Nuge. So, plain spoken, the way this team's built, it's built around Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. He is the core building block, right? Nugent-Hopkins is a building block of success. Nugent-Hopkins is almost that silent partner of, hey, I'm the guy that is square one of this team. And I just do what I do, and everybody else around me makes it work. And that's the beautiful part about this team, is there's a ton. There's 23, 25 guys on this team that have committed to doing what they do and making it work. Guys, I'm Tyson. This is Dolynny TV. I will catch you in the next one.